Hello ladies and gentlemen, it is me, Tamugi, and today we're going to talk about the coming changes of the chapter approved 2018 for the Tyranids. Now I know a lot of people already seen the leaked images, and for some reason the images are getting taken down because no one wants to get into legal dispute with Games Workshop, and neither do I. So I'm just gonna read it about the changes. I'm not going to show any pictures here, so you're just gonna have to take my word for it. I already write a review last night, but I haven't posted yet. So I figured like maybe just a video is probably more comprehensive compared to like a post. You know, it's a video is probably better. Now let's get started. All right, let's start with the Broodlord. Now Broodlord got point drop down to 115 points per model, which is a great change. It is definitely a welcoming change. I mean, Broodlord doesn't worth 164 point beforehand and never has been. So point drop to 115 is great. But does that mean that Kraken fleets are going to take Broodlord as their headquarter choice? Now that's a good question because it depends on how you build your list. Say if you play like a 2 battalion, all right, you play 2 battalion, and for some reason you don't want to play Chronos, you just want to play Kraken, all the way Kraken, so you bring 2 battalion of Kraken, and the first battalion is going to fill your HQ slot with 2 Flyrant, obviously, and the second battalion you're going to fill it with 019, right? You're going to fill it with 019 and something else, which you didn't know was going to be a good choice because back in the day, Broodlord was too expensive, and Neurothrope could not keep up with this whole Hormigons and Genestealer speed, so Neurothrope was out of the game. Now, with the Broodlord getting point drop down to 115 points, now it is actually a pretty good synapse creature for Kraken or any forward going Hive fleet. So Broodlord you can now take into consideration, turn it once again, get something that's fast and able to move forward and buff the Genestealers. So Broodlord is now an okay unit to take if you want 4 synapse, but if you're only taking 1 Kraken battalion, say Kraken and Chronos like the good old days, then you're probably still going to use 2 Flyrants. You know, like Broodlord is not here to replace the status of Hive Tyrant with wings. It's just there to give you one extra option to maintain your maintain the whole 4 synapse, so to say, for Kraken at least. So that's it for Broodlord. And then let's move on to the Exocrine. Now Exocrine is really good. This is a super welcoming change. I know I haven't made video about heavy support unit yet, but I soon will. After chapter approved release, I will start making videos based on the new chapter approved changes. So let's talk about Exocrine, right? Exocrine, it's already a pretty good unit. It was 216 point, and now it got changed down to 170 point, which is fantastic. It is super amazing. Exocrine itself, alright, the model is toughness 8, 3+ armor save, and its ballistic skill of 4, but if you did not move the model, it's able to shoot twice and have its ballistic skill improved to BS 3. So this is good, and the main theme of this creature is its weapon, the plasma weapon. The plasma cannon of Exocrine is strength 7, AP -3, and damage of 2, which is okay for killing heavy infantry such as Primus Marines or Terminators, which does not exist, or any warrior type monster with multiple wounds, alright? It's only be able to kill infantry, but with the stratagem of pathogenic slime, it's able to up its damage from 2 to a 3, which obviously improves its anti-tank capability because now each shot deals 3 wounds instead of 2. So Exocrine is awesome. I do not know why Games Workshop still reduced this point down because it's already really good. But now Exocrine is going to be, it's going to step up its game. It's going to start from okay unit to bring to very good unit to bring. So if you're playing like a Chronos shooting monstrous creature list, then Exocrine is going to be an auto include. And Tyranid will start seeing more shooting army themed list pop in the tournament because now Exocrine is really cheap for what it does, alright? So Exocrine is fantastic, it's really welcoming, so let's move on. Let's move on to the Harpy, alright? Now, Harpy, okay, in case you don't know, Harpy is the one that with like 2 Venom Cannon or 2 Barb Strangler, depends on what you want to build it. It's basically air to ground assault craft-ish, but it does not have -1 to hit, the hard to hit. It does not have that, or the supersonic either. So it's not exactly an aircraft, but it exists in the flyer slot. So now, the problem with Harpy, alright, back in the day it's just really expensive, it's only toughness of a 6, does not have hard to hit, and it only has ballistic skill of 4. Although, granted, that its weapon is assault weapon, so moving the model does not subtract its ballistic skill whatsoever. It's an assault weapon, right? You can move it and shoot it without suffering the ballistic skill damage, unlike Space Marine aircraft, which, you know, all they have weapons, heavy weapon, but does not have anything to mitigate that. So this is all great, but it's just too expensive and it's too easy to get shot down. You know, it's the only toughness of a 6. I mean, fucking, like, Plasma can deal with it, no problem, and does not have hard to hit, so it's basically any sort of heavy monster unit with fly keyword. That's pretty much it, right? Now, the point got dropped to 105, but that does not include weapon. If you include a weapon, it's going to be 141 points if you take Venom Cannon, or I think it's about the same if you take Barb Strangler. I haven't calculated the point cost for the weapons yet, but that's pretty much about it. It's like 140-ish points for a flying creature with 2 heavy cannon, heavy venom cannon, or a Barb Strangler for your choice, and then you can shoot infantry, which I guess it's okay. I mean, 140 points for that, it's not really that expensive. I guess you can start bringing it now. Also, not to mention its capability to drop spore mines on top of enemy if it flew over the set target. So I guess it's an okay unit to bring now, but I'll be a little bit more reserved about this unit. I will make judgment later. It really depends on how the whole meta changes. You know, if the meta now directs its focus from dealing with Imperial Knights to dealing with Horde, such as Orc and, you know, Tyranid ourselves, or Space Marine, which is going to be heavily infantry because they got a huge infantry point drop with Chapter Approved as well. So the focus might be switched from heavy tank hunting into infantry hunting. So if that happens, then maybe there's a chance to see Harpy or other flyers or monster creatures to see on the field. You know, there's a possibility. Alright, let's move on to the Hive Crone, which Hive Crone, I'm going to talk about this unit later in the dedicated video, but right now I'm just going to say Hive Crone got just as much change like Harpy does, but it still does not make the unit viable in my view. I don't think it's still going to be viable because the design of the unit is just really messed up. I don't know what it's trying to do. It has assault weapon, it has mortal wound missile launcher, it has capability to do melee damage, it has a tail that is strength 8. It's just so much going on. Like, the unit design is really awkward, so say. I'm not saying it's bad, it's just really awkward. I don't know what the role it's trying to fill. So I'll talk about this unit later, but it does got point drop. But I think like Harpy, I'm gonna be a little bit more reserved on how I feel about this change. All right. So let's move on to some unit that's really similar to Hive Crone. All right. Let's talk about Haruspex. Haruspex is a toughness 8 unit with Ravenous Maw and sort of like a gigantic version of Crushing Claw, and it's able to regain HP, the wound, if it kills enemy model. So and it also has a pretty flawed design and how it triggers its extra attack. So if you attack with its anti-infantry weapon, it's able to trigger the anti-tank weapon to hit on the same infantry squad, so which makes absolutely no sense. But this creature does have point drop from 198 point to 170 point, which it's a huge leap. I mean, it's like almost 30-ish point. So like, why don't people start using it? But I still don't think, like, again, this is one of those unit that's just like, it's not that the point is too expensive, it's more like the role design is really awkward, you know, like they are not feeling any sort of role that is competitive. They're not feeling any sort of competitive role. I mean, the point drop is nice, you know, the people who only trying to use it on the table can probably have an easier time to do so, but I still feel like they don't really fit any role, and this is not something that point change can alternate, you know, it's not something that can change, so I'll leave it like that. So I'll discuss this unit as soon as Chapter Approved drop. Alright, so let's move on to Lictor. Now, Lictor is actually pretty interesting because Lictor back in the day was used to be like 45 point, I believe, right? 45 point. Now it drops to like 30 point without including the weapon, so which is probably like 35-ish, I think. I don't know, maybe 35-ish point per model. This is interesting because now if Tyranid want to fill up like a brigade detachment, you have a very cheap alternative for that. You know, back in the day, HQ obviously used Neurothrope because it's cheapest, and Troop use Tervigons because it's cheapest. Fast attack, you use Spore Mine, which is 20 points per piece, it's super cheap. And then heavy support, you use Pyrovore. So it's all really cheap to fill up like a Tyranid brigade to get that sweet 12 command point. But there weren't really like ideal elite choices, you know, because like, yeah, sure, you can choose like Neurothrope or Hive cards, but they're too expensive to get an easy brigade detachment command point bonus. But now, since Lictor is only 30-ish point, 3 Lictor only costs you 90, so that might, you know, that might be worth it if you want to take a brigade detachment. But Lictor itself, if we're just talking about Lictor, like the unit itself, not talking about the army list building, I still think like Lictor, unless they somehow change the rule, they allow a Lictor unit to contain 3 or more models, that would be fantastic. But before that happens, as a lone hunter, Lictor does not really have any sort of gimmick. You know, it's not it can't even kill like a, like I said in my previous elite video, it can't even kill like a squad of guardsmen. So why bother bringing it, right? You're charging the guardsman, you kill 1 or 2 model, and what? You lock a guardsman troop up. That's fantastic. That's great, but nothing is being done there. All right, so. And also, it's only be able to get there with Deep Strike. And Deep Strike right now with the beta rule, you can only Deep Strike after turn 2, or you know, in your own deployment zone in turn 1. But that makes no sense. All right, let's move on to the Maleceptor. Now, I expressed how much I love this model in my previous elite unit video. Now, I want to say that Maleceptor with slight point drop, it looks starting to look pretty appealing. I must say, it is. You're essentially paying 150 point. All right, you're paying 150 point for a model that's has similar stat as a Hive Tyrant, which is usually 190 points without any sort of weapon modification. With wings, if without weapons, it's like 150-ish points. So it's about the same. It's about the same. So back in the day, you know, when it was 162 point, people don't bring it because if we just compare stat to stat with Hive Tyrant, Maleceptor is actually a little bit more expensive, even though it has like the same stat. But now it's dropped down to 150 point per model. Now it's starting to look really appealing because now you're essentially paying for Hive Tyrant. Okay, it does exactly the same thing. It gives Synapse, it has Shadow in the Warp, and it can cast Psychic Ability. Albeit it does not move as fast because it doesn't have Wing upgrade, but that doesn't really matter because you can always use Metabolic Overdrive. Or you can just crack on it, you know, just advance it because Psychic Phase doesn't really matter anyway. So you can just Metabolic Overdrive that thing, just move it forward, and then just cast the ability. You can just do that. Okay. Now Maleceptor, with these changes, I can see people start bringing it just to test it out. All right. It's not gonna be, oh my god, this is so fucking amazing, I'm gonna start bringing it in my next game. It's not like that, but for whoever has the model already, they might want to start using it in their coming games because now Maleceptor, it can actually support your Synapse providing web. You know, you can have a larger Synapse providing web. Now, Maleceptor, I think it's playable. Now it's playable. It is now playable. I won't say it's competitive, but I think it's able to bring on the table and see some success with it. But really, we have to see the coming chapter approved to see if it's actually worth it. But if it does drop to 150 point per model, I might actually start bringing it on the table because they're basically a copy of Flyrant without the ability to move around. But that's okay. That doesn't really matter. I mean, point stat wise, it's actually cheaper than Hive Tyrant. Alright, so why don't I start bringing it? I mean, also the model is able to cast Psychic Overload, which is always helpful against a Swarm army. So that's great. Alright, that's how much I'm going to talk about Maleceptor. Let's move on to the Neurothrope. Now, Neurothrope actually got nerfed. Its point increased from 70 to 90. This is not like a devastating hit from Games Workshop. It's not. It really is not. I mean, you can see it coming. All right, Neurothrope is too cheap for what it does. I mean, it's 3+ invulnerable save, two psychic ability per phase, and 2 denies, and it can regain wounds every time it smites. So it's like, why? It's really cheap. So like back in the day, all right, back in the day, people bring Neurothrope not really because its ability to smite people, but really it's really cheap. It's the cheapest alternative for Tyranid HQ. If you want to have like a Chronos backfield HQ, then Neurothrope is your go-to option, right? Because it's really cheap. Now the point got increased to 90 point, you know, so it's like, it kind of like, maybe I don't really need a second battalion, or, you know, I don't really need to fill that brigade detachment, you know, something like that. So Neurothrope is now you have to think about how to remove some of your model to make room for your Neurothrope. Let's say if you still want to play your list, your typical Kraken Chronos list, but you have to Neurothrope in your Chronos detachment, now you're 40 point over, right? You're 40 point over, and you have to make room for them. Which, you know, I want to recite this whole chapter approved change. Tyranid actually take a hit. I mean, I'm not trying to be like negative here, like I'm being really honest. I think Tyranid take a hit, because if you compare our changes to changes like Adeptus Mechanicus or Space Marine, they or Astra Militarum, you know, they all got dramatic change on their core unit. But if you really look at our list of change, it doesn't really change any of our core unit. Hormone didn't get changed, Gene Stealer didn't get changed, Tervigon didn't get changed, Ripper Swarm, Hive Tyrants, Hive Guards, and Neurothrope got nerfed. So it's like our core unit basically did not get buffed, and one of our HQ choice got nerfed. So, you know, like if you do the math, you can see that it's actually a nerf to Tyranid. All right. Yes, of course, it is true that now we have like point reduction on some of the random units, you know, such as Harpy, Hive Crone, Haruspex, and Toxicrene. You know, you got all the point decrease on that, which is great. You know, it kind of spice up the whole strategy building. You know, people will say, oh, now we have more choice. You know, not just Hive Guard, Gene Stealers, and Hive Tyrant, blah, blah, blah. We have more choice now, which is nice. It is really nice. But most of these units, like I said, like Lictor, Haruspex, and Maleceptor, people didn't refuse to bring them because they were expensive. People didn't bring them because they don't provide enough utility. You know, it does not provide enough utility to be included in their competitive list. People didn't like refuse to bring them because they were not worth their point. That's the problem with this whole thing. You know, like the point drop is okay, it is fine, but without any rule changes, if they just reduce the point on our random unit that really needs some rule changes, and they just reduce the point and then call it a day, then I think this whole thing is just I won't say huge, but it's a significant nerf to our faction. It is. I think that's what I really want to say in this video, because it really is a nerf, you know, if you really look into it. So anyway, let's move on to Pyrovore. So now Pyrovore, all right, this is another one of those units that I was actually surprised to see Games Workshop buff, because like Exocrine, you know, Exocrine, I was like, it's already in the okay spot. Like now you reduce point even further, and it's like a huge point reduction. So it's like 216 point to 170 points. So it's a huge point reduction. So when I saw Exocrine chain, I was like, wow, okay. If you really want to buy, if you really want to sell us that model, that's fine. I'll buy it because it is really good. Because Exocrine is good. And same thing over here for Pyrovores. Now Pyrovore, it was 39 point or 38 point per model. Now it's only 25 point per model. It's only 25 point. So a squad of Pyrovore is now only going to be 75 points, which is amazing, because now you don't even have to deep strike them. All right, if you just take Kraken, you can run them up on the board with 3d6 advance, pick the highest result, and then just fire away, because it's a assault weapon and it's automatically hit anyway, so you don't have to worry about the blizzard skill and whatnot. You don't have to worry any of that. Now Pyrovore is going to be really cheap and really nice to use. But the only problem I'm having here, this is not exactly game mechanic problem. This is more like, yeah, the model itself is Risen Cast. I'm not gonna pay for Risen Cast models because I regret every single Risen Cast model I paid for. That's the only problem I have with Pyrovore. But other than that, if we're just talking about pure game mechanic wise, Pyrovore is going to see a lot of interesting play nowadays. Be it like Yoramagan, deep striking, or Kraken advancing, or something else. I don't know. Maybe people will figure it out, or maybe I'll try to figure it out to see how we play this beast. Because 25 point per model for heavy flamer, yeah, that's about the point of a last cannon on Space Marine. You know, like we're basically paying a point of a last cannon for a beast with heavy flamer that explode on death, and it deals mortal damage every time it gets struck in melee combat. So this is really good. I'm looking forward to play more Pyrovore if Games Workshop, if you're listening to this, make it plastic, please. I'm begging you, please make it plastic. All right. So let's talk about Tervigon. Now Tervigon, yeah, I mean, it does got point reduction. It's now dropped to 180 point without including the weapon. So we just talk about like base point. 180 point for Tervigon, it's okay, I see it. I mean, I'm starting to see room for improvement. Back in the day, it was only, it's like 240 something point, right? Now it's only, maybe, it's probably going to be like 190, 200 point-ish, I think. It's going to be much cheaper, all right? It is going to be much cheaper, but I think this problem persists. Like I said in my HQ video, Tervigon is one of those units, even if you drop its point, it's not going to help this unit, because the problem with this kind of unit is not because it's expensive, but because the rule design are really flawed. You know, like we have to pay for reinforcement point, and like every time we replenish our Termigons, the weapon has to be flashbore, etc. You know, but now, you know, like point reduction, it's, you know, it's one step. It's one good step in like right direction. You know, it is one step towards the right direction. If you like drop it a little bit more, probably people will start bringing it for like a swarm list. But that's about it. You know, like Tervigon getting point reduction pretty much like emphasize more play on the Swarm Army. Because now, back in the day, Swarm Army doesn't really need to consider about Tervigon, because number one, it actually kills your own Tervigon if it dies. And number two, it's really expensive, alright? It does not spawn enough Tervigon to justify its point. But now with point reduction, it's about 40 point, I think. Yeah, it's about 40 point of point reduction. So you basically get one squad of Tervigon for free. Right, so you get one free Tervigon squad, and do you want to start bringing Tervigon? So that's a question you have to ask yourself. I was like I said about the Harpy and Hive Crone. I'm a little bit more reserved about this, but I think Tervigon is still gonna be in the sinkhole. It's still gonna be really bad. But you know, if you want to play a Storm Army, now I think it's an okay alternative if you really want to. So Toxicrene, I really don't want to talk about it. I mean, it's the exact same problem with Haruspex. It went from 157 point to 140 points, which is like, whatever, who cares, man? It's like, the problem with Toxicrene is not because it's expensive, but because like it does not have any sort of invulnerable save. It does not provide any sort of aura buff, even though it's called Toxicrene, which supposedly should provide the same -1 to hit aura like Venomthrope does, but for some reason the small one does, but the big one does not. So whatever, Games Workshop, whatever. So yeah, that's enough. I'm gonna talk about Toxicrene because it's a rule problem. It's not the point problem. All right, but now let's talk about something interesting. All right, let's talk about Warrior Prime, Tyranid Prime. It went from 100 point to 70 point, assuming you're taking double sizing talent, which is free. You know, the base cost. All right, if you take like a Devour or Death Spitter, it's gonna be 105 and 104. Right, but now it drops to 70 point. Right, so this creates a very interesting dilemma. All right, you know, back in the day when we say, all right, we take Neurothrope for our Chronos backfield HQ because it's the cheapest option, right? That's what we have been saying all the time. It is the cheapest option. We take it because it's cheap. We don't take it because Neurothrope is able to do anything. I mean, sure, Neurothrope can cast Onslaught on Hive Guard if they really have to move, so they don't have to suffer the -1 to hit penalty when they move their heavy weapon, blah, blah, blah. That's all good and stuff, but let's be realistic here. Neurothrope does not really do anything interesting in the battlefield. Alright, it does not do anything other than providing synapse. Alright, it's a character, it can't be shot at, which, you know, Tyranid Prime can do exactly the same thing. Alright, even though Tyranid Prime does not have 3+ invulnerable save, but then again, why would you need invulnerable save anyway? If a sniper rifle type of weapon hit you, it's gonna deal mortal damage. right? Which your invulnerable save is not going to save against. So if we really compare two together, like what's the real difference here? Tyranid Prime and Neurothrope. Yeah, sure, Neurothrope can cast Psychic ability, but does that mean now we don't have to take two Neurothrope? Because it's no longer an auto include. Back in the day, we auto included because it is the cheapest Tyranid HQ option we have. We have no other choice, right? So we take two Neurothrope. While one Neurothrope will be able to cast Onslaught on Hive Guard, the other Neurothrope kind of just like sit there doing nothing. It's such a huge waste on point, right? It is such a huge waste on point on Neurothrope because just sit there doing nothing, basically, right? But now Neurothrope got point increase. Now Neurothrope is 90 point per model. So based on the logic of taking the cheapest option we have, does that mean we need to start taking Tyranid Prime for our Chronos backfield HQ, obviously, right? Do we start taking Tyranid Prime into consideration that maybe we can start bringing some Tyranid Prime sitting in the backfield and just provide synapse and do nothing else? I mean, that's basically what the second Neurothrope does back in the day anyway. And then you save then you save 20 points for having one Neurothrope and one Tyranid Prime. All right, you still get that Psychic ability from the Neurothrope. You don't lose Psychic ability. Instead of bringing two Neurothrope, just bring one Warrior, Tyranid Prime, and one Neurothrope. That's it. It's simple as that. You get minus 20 point outright. All right, so that's good. This is really good. So, but Tyranid Prime. All right, let's talk about the not just about Chronos. Let's talk about the Tyranid. Let's talk about a Warrior buff. All right, I was actually looking forward to see if Games Workshop would change Warrior point in this chapter approved, but unfortunately they did not. All right, they did not change the Warrior base cost, but they did, however, change the cost for Venom Cannon, which they reduced the Venom Cannon cost from, I couldn't see the picture anymore, but I think it was like 3 to 5 point decrease. Oh, actually, yeah, 3 to 5 point decrease. Yeah, Venom Cannon. You know, Venom Cannon has actually gotten cheaper now, right? So if you're gonna play the Uramagon Warrior shooty list, you actually get a significant buff with the Venom Cannon reduction and the Tyranid Prime point reduction. Obviously, if you're already playing like a Warrior themed list, then this is a good news for you because now Tyranid Prime costs less. You know, you can give it weapon, or you can use the point you saved here on your Warrior's equipment. You can do all that, so that's great. But overall, I still think the whole Warrior Swarm army, yeah, we probably need to spend more time to see if that's actually going to happen. But I don't know about that, not for now. So that's enough about Tyranid Prime. Now, the second interesting I'm going to talk about is Tyrannocyte. aka our drop pod. I'm just gonna call it drop pod from now on. So the drop pod got point reduction from 98 points to 75 points, which if you include 5 Death Spitter, it's going to be 100 point on the dot, right? 100 point for a drop pod for Tyranids. Alright, it's not bad. I mean, back in the day, it's 123 points. Now it's only 100 points. So the 23 point reduction, it's kind of like, Now, does that mean that we can start thinking about strategy involving Tyrannocyte with monstrous creature? All right, I'm gonna hold on this thought right now. I'm just gonna go quickly to the whatchamacallit. Oh yeah, Tyrannofex. All right, Tyrannofex also got point reduction. All right, it got huge point reduction for Tyrannocyte. It went from 181 point to 151 point per model without weapon, obviously. Now, if you give it like a weapon, it's now going to be like 200 point on the die. If you give it like Rupture Cannon, let me just do some little calculation here. 49. Yeah, 20 point on the die. If you take Tyrannofex with Rupture Cannon, it's going to be 20 point on the dot, which is much better than what it used to be, which is 238 point, right? But now if you take something like, maybe not Rupture Cannon, maybe if you take, let's see, if you take Acid Spray, yeah, that's the point. The Acid Spray, if you take Acid Spray, it's going to be less than 200 point, and then you can put it in the Tyrannocyte, and then drop into enemy front door and start spewing all their Guardsmen. Now it's actually a valid strategy to do it. No, back in the day, people already figured it out. Like people say, hey, why don't we put Tyrannofex into Tyrannocyte and then just drop it and then kill a bunch of infantry. Why don't we do that? But like back in the day, the problem with that is it's too expensive, alright? Like back in the day, Tyrannofax costs a shit ton, and same thing goes with Tyrannocyte, you know, it's just too expensive. Now the both of these units got point reduction, significant point reduction, especially on Tyrannofax. So now that get people thinking, because Acid Spray is not like your regular flamer weapon. It is not a flamer, it is not heavy flamer, it's strength 7. Alright, it is strength 7. It's strength 7 weapon. It deals 2 damage, I believe. It deals 2 damage per shot, which is actually pretty good versus Aeldari Flyer. You know, which with their all the crazy -1 to hit, which, you know, if they accumulate, if they combine all together, it's going to be -3 to hit, which is insane. There's no way you can shut it down unless you bring Acid Spray, which is a flamer type weapon, and it automatically hits. So it doesn't really give a shit about the entire -1 to hit bullshit. It just shoots a plane, and since it's strength 7, it can easily wound the plane, which is usually toughness 6, and it has decent amount of AP, and it deals 2 damage each, so it's gonna be great. You know, like the whole Acid Spray Tyrannofax is going to be great, and if you put it inside a drop pod, you can drop it next to their plane and then just shoot away. You know, it doesn't really matter where they fly their flyer, because when it's your turn, all you have to do is just drop it 9 inch outside and then just spew away, because our weapon is 18 inches. Acid Spray is 18 inches, so I'm definitely going to reach you. There's no way for you to run. Fantastic, right? And finally, last but not least, Swarmlord. And now Swarmlord got point reduction from 300 point to 250 point. Alright? I remember when I talked about Swarmlord in my previous review HQ unit video, where I was talking about, is it worth it to bring a 300 unit just so you can slingshot your Gene Stealer from turn 1? And, you know, like I asked you that question. Now, with the 50 point reduction, the answer might be yes. Now it is worth it, because a 250 point for a model with Hive Tyrant stat, slightly better obviously, because vulnerable save increase from 4+ to 3+ if it's a mini combat, but that usually does not happen. So we're basically paying 200 point for the Hive Tyrant stat line, and then the other 50 point for the ability to slingshot Gene Stealer from our board to the other side, which is 40 inches, which I explained in my previous video. You can go check it out if you want to. So I think now it's going to be worth it, but I still think I'm gonna be a little bit more reserved about this, because 250 points is still a lot, man. It is still a lot, 250 point. But now, if your whole list is based on the ability of slingshotting a Gene Stealer with a Swarmlord, now you can definitely include it, and you have some spare point to spend. Maybe you can buy another 10 Hormigons, you know, which is great. The more Hormigons, the better, right? So that's pretty much about it. Of course, there's still weapon changes, like the Venom Cannon, Heavy Venom Cannon, and the Sizing Talon, which the Massive Sizing Talon, obviously. A Massive Sizing Talon, which is equipped on Trigon and Trigon Prime, which inherently reduce their point cost as well, because even though Trigon and Trigon Prime did not get point reduction, the Massive Sizing Talon reduction actually helped them a little bit. I mean, it is a little bit, but with the new beta Deep Strike rule, we still have to wait to see in the next FAQ, which I believe is going to be March 2019, to see if Deep Strike rule is being decided, because right now it's still beta. Alright, it is still beta, so don't worry too much about it. Deep Strike might still be a thing in future, but right now it is not. So the Trigon Prime change does not really matter. The Trigon change does not really matter at this point in time. But that's about it. So I'm gonna make video when the chapter approved book actually arrive, which is next week, and I'm gonna talk about it and then share more of my Tyranid strategy with you guys. And let me know if you guys have any question or if I say anything wrong. And please leave comments about how you feel about this FAQ. You know, this is not one of those YouTuber leave a comment, leave a like, that kind of bullshit. I actually want to know, like, let's use this video as a forum. Let's talk about how you feel about the Tyranid changes in this FAQ, assuming it's real, which I think it is. Alright, so that's it. That's it for today. This is Tsumugi, and thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.